In an age dominated by games with flashy fantasy and grand graphics, how would a game about something as mundane as office work life fare? Going Under is a roguelite dungeon crawler set in a satire of internships, office culture, and tech startups. And I know that doesn't exactly sound very interesting, but stick with me here, because Aggro Crab has made something that's so worth talking about. It begins with this very corporate video introducing you to the company Cubicle, and it hits every trope in these types of videos, the minimalistic style, the whole "our company began as a quaint startup in a garage by people just like you" story, and the text-to-speech is a silly cherry on top. Cubicle acquires startups and gives them the resources and assigns workers so they can be successful. You're then told to never explore underneath the... You'll play as Jackie Fiasco, a unpaid intern who through Cubicle was assigned to the company called Fizzle. They make sparkling water that's also a meal replacement. Jackie's speaking to her new boss, and then suddenly a goblin escapes from the basement and you're told to go down there and kill the rest of them by your boss? Wait, what? Fearing that she'll be fired on her first day if she refuses, Jackie reluctantly agrees. This is where the main gameplay starts. As Jackie, you'll be exploring floors and fighting your way through randomized dungeons to take down a boss at the end. The combat takes inspiration from Breath of the Wild's somewhat controversial durability system, and cranks that shit to 100. Weapons break fast, and I love that. The durability forces you to think and plan out every minor encounter, while you could slam through crowds with a giant cactus sword that could end up placing you in a bad situation if it broke, so it's smarter to save that for something truly dangerous and instead make smart use of your surroundings. You can pick up the many objects lying around and use them as temporary weapons, throw pencils, fire staplers, chuck bins, body pillows, phones, eggplants, ladders, debt. What makes this even more interesting are the skills. These passive items will give you a buff like bigger weapons, faster attack speed, or... It always feels rewarding to find another skill, as you have to find or buy them in each floor, or do a bit of risk-reward by giving yourself a massive but temporary debuff, but you get skills for doing it. After repeatedly finding and using the same skill in runs, you're eventually able to pick that skill to start off runs with. This gives you a bit of choice and opens up some new strategies without entirely relying on luck. The skills tweak the gameplay enough to keep things fresh, despite how simple combat can feel, with there being a normal attack, charged attack, and a throw. While it sounds quite simple, a lot of the gameplay's depth comes from managing your money, making use of consumable items, and exploiting enemy attack patterns to dodge and fight back. Also, all three of the game's dungeons feel vastly different from each other, all with their own fun gimmicks. Like, in one of them you're collecting cryptocurrency that can be spent at the shops as is, or you can trade it in for real money. It's exciting because every shop has a different exchange rate, so you could trade it in for money because you really want that item, but maybe, just maybe, the next place later on will have a better exchange rate, so you'll be swimming in cash, which, when you realize it, is the exact same sort of mindset people who are into cryptocurrency in real life have. And that's so fucking smart. The fact that they made me think like that through the game's mechanics without outright telling me, I love that so much. And the game does a lot of cool stuff like this that I'll go into more later. While you have many options to deal with fights, don't think for 1 second that going under is easy. I died a lot, and was always clamoring for just one more piece of avocado toast to heal up, especially in the second dungeon, but it usually felt fair if I died. While it starts off comfortably easy, there is a noticeable difficulty spike in the game. While I'm a huge fan of the harder difficulty past that surprise as it forces you to really master the game, I can understand how that can be frustrating. I do appreciate the option to make the game easier. While I recommend trying your best to survive the hardest parts of the game, there's no shame in making use of it, and anyone that says otherwise can chuck their elitism in the bin. The gameplay, whilst frantic as hell— oh, that's a lot of enemies, I can't fucking see through the fire, fuck off! is also way too fun, though I can't deny that it can get overwhelming at times, keeping track of so many different things going on like projectiles, explosions, and durability. But at the same time, that's exciting or sometimes annoying depending on the situation. Getting into a difficult encounter and using your knowledge to plan and execute creative ways to clear rooms feels super rewarding. Whenever I'd screw up and end my run, I never got annoyed that I messed up. In fact, I went the complete opposite direction and was sorta happy when I would lose, because that means I could get to go back to the hub to experience what I think is one of Going Under's best qualities: the writing. This caught me off guard because good writing isn't really something I'd expect to find from a game like this, as there's usually a focus on gameplay, but Going Under has an actual main story to progress through, whilst also being a roguelite. Every time you go back there'll be new cutscenes, or at least new dialogue from every character. They sort of fall into stereotypes of people you might meet up with in an office, like slacker dude Swamp who keeps trying to teach a dog to beatbox, sarcastic tech girl Kara who owns said dog, the caffeine-addicted accountant Tappy, who has a serious moment in the story that quite surprised me, the inconsiderate founder Fizzle, Ray, the asshole boss Marv, and the kind-hearted Fern. I grew to like most of them throughout the game. Watching Jackie's personality bounce off the other characters led to some really funny, charming, or even heartwarming situations, and the story was surprisingly interesting enough to motivate me to beat the game. Generally, it's just following the lives of these characters as they go through painfully real and relatable moments, whilst Jackie's boss keeps treating her like shit. I mean, she signed up for an ordinary job, or an internship rather, and he keeps forcing her to go into these dungeons to kill things with the promise of finally giving her a real job at Fizzle. But it never happens. Wow, the fact that being treated like shit at work is relatable to so many people is pretty depressing. Then again, having the game basically tell you that you aren't alone is comforting in some way. If you work in an office, especially if your job is tech-related, Going Under is basically written for you. That's not to say you won't like it if you don't though. I mean, I still seriously enjoyed the story, despite my only memory with offices was a work experience thing I did 2 years ago. I remember on the last day they played music out of every phone, the audio was crunchy, it sounded terrible, and then a bunch of people got up to dance, but like, it wasn't like a proper one, it was just like oh, I'm dancing because I have to. The presentation is easily one of the best parts about the game. A lot of humor and thought was put into the environment and visuals. The hub has text that can be read as, make the world better place, or make the better world a place, or make place better world the. Graphic design is dead. The dungeons are all themed after modern life stuff, like the office dungeon has you fighting with office supplies, and all the shops are swanky hipster cafes. In the cryptocurrency dungeon, you're fighting skeletons with pickaxes, because it's cryptocurrency and they're mining. That's good. I like that one a lot, even though it's really stupid. And the dating app dungeon has enemies with body pillows, and you can swipe left and right to speed date enemies, so you can have them as AI companions if you beat them up fast enough. Oh no, that sounds kinda messed up actually. Going Under is full of stuff like this. I think one of the more interesting things to look at is how every little thing fits into the theme of work. Conversations look like text, there's useful consumable apps that reference real life, the UI looks like a modern phone interface, quests are called tasks, quest pop-ups look like phone notifications, and the permanent upgrades are instead your co-workers mentoring you to help you out in dungeons. The tasks you're given are usually pretty fun. Some are extremely basic, most are funny, like Ray telling you to go destroy Union because he believes they're the worst. What the fuck, Ray? And some of the later ones are incredibly hard. One that caught my eye though was the task to go walk Kara's adorable dog to a specific floor in a dungeon. At a glance, there's nothing to really talk about as it's just dragging along her dog that seriously weighs you down. In fact, the dog functions the exact same as the ball and chain that attaches to you if you go into debt. But that's the thing, if the quest was get to floor 3 with a ball and chain, you'd groan because that doesn't exactly sound like fun. But the simple act of presenting it as, go walk this cute dog, makes it sound way more exciting without anything really being changed. At its core, the two are the exact same gameplay-wise, but it's the way you present challenges to the player is just as important as the challenge itself, and this is the best example of that. Doing these is worth your time since it upgrades that mentor. You can pick one mentor for some useful perks during runs. Each of them feel unique, all adding something new to the gameplay for you to take advantage of. Kara strengthens the apps, Fern adds a whole new set of items to use, and Ray irresponsibly gives you his credit card, allowing you to go into debt. There used to be an exploit where building up tons of debt and having a specific set of skills would allow you to pick up the large ball of debt to slam it into enemies, dealing insane damage. It is as ridiculous as it sounds. I wish I had footage of it, because you could absolutely melt bosses with it before it was patched. The bosses themselves are great. Well-telegraphed attacks, they test your knowledge and are tense, since failure means restarting the dungeon again. I had this bug where the boss was just spinning until I hit it, and I mean, yeah, bugs are bad, but maybe not this one. It was pretty funny, honestly. I don't have anything to really say for each fight because they're all good. They all have funny animations and details like everything else in the game, and none of them really stuck out to me as bad, except for the final boss. Or at least the final boss was bad. I played at launch, and to put it bluntly, I thought it sucked. A patch came out fixing a bunch of annoying bugs and sorting out the final boss, which is great because I now love everything about it. It had a lot of really strange decisions, like giving the enemies armor, which depletes when hit, but it doesn't matter how powerful the attack was, it would go down by 1, which, you know, that doesn't sound like a problem, that is fine. But before that, you're given the most powerful weapon in the game, so, like, what was the point? And also, I was getting pretty mad over some questionable hitboxes. The final boss was meant to be my big point of criticism, but then they fixed it before I could finish this script, and I went back to find that it's really fucking fun, so there goes that part of the script, I guess. Going Under is easily a game I can say that I love. Its stellar presentation and style gives it a strong sense of identity. I cannot get over how it looks. There's so many details and touches that I could analyze for hours, with tons of clear effort, care, and love crammed into every part of the game. The music will program your brain with mellow tracks that fit the mood perfectly. The writing parodies real life with moments that range from depressingly relatable to hilariously stupid with a fantastic open-ended ending. And while yes, the gameplay suffers from some jank, clunk, and sometimes outright bullshit, it manages to stay fun throughout with its unique combat system that focuses on improvisation. Oh my god, this is a fucking good game. Play it, full stop, goodbye.